the whole reparations thing, I'm up in the air about that, right? Because, for instance, I think that it's not a good thing for us because it create this sense of we waiting for something from somebody. Like, whether we feel them folks owe us or not, like that ain't never a good thing. It creates a sense of entitlement. We don't need to go about anything like that. I understand what we was promised and what we built and all that. For me, I see it as let's pick up and keep it moving. If we don't want one thing from them, then we don't need nothing from them.
But I think that we have to put ourselves in a position that we can do both and. That it is not one thing or the other. There are people who will be fighting for reparations, which is what our communities deserve. There are other people who are going to be focused on building small businesses, other people who are in electoral politics, other people who will be doing community safety. And I think all cylinders have to be operating at the same time so that we benefit from everything.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Rather than us discouraging people from doing what they're interested and passionate.
I felt like after the George Floyd thing happened, everybody was like, oh, we didn't know black people was going through these tough times, right? And it was all this money, the 150 million to this and the 200 million to that and all the money to this, right? And I think we at the point where we don't need people to tell us that they care about us. I think the reform that we need is economic reform. You know what I mean? That's one of the biggest things, right? I mean, everybody talks about financial literacy and all of that. And why don't our teachers teach us? Because our teachers is in debt. Why don't our mothers teach us? Because our mothers didn't have the opportunity to have certain types of jobs in the economy they grew up in. So my biggest thing that I think about is like economic reform. When I hear what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying, like it needs to be a conversation around like really building if we gonna do it, not just like, because what happened to all that money that everybody was talking about in 2020, bro? Like that shit just disappeared.
Main issue I want to see addressed, man, there's a lot of them, but the first and foremost is employment and taking pride in our own communities enough where we can sustain our communities by keeping our business in our communities. And I think there's a lot of roadblocks that were set years ago, hundreds of years ago, that are still there. We just need more people at the table that understand what those roadblocks are and do everything in their power to get them taken away.
Most of it did not get given out as it was promised, and the vast majority of it was actually in the form of grants and loans so that those banking institutions could make their money back off of it.
This is why our consciousness has to be elevated, right? Because when you get money and you don't start the businesses or you don't engage in cooperative economics and you blow it, you know what I'm saying, then it becomes a missed opportunity.
I totally agree. Like, I don't think we should wait on anything. But it's pretty much like working a job, right? And they take taxes out your money every week, right? Imagine if they never gave you none of their taxes. Everybody else was getting theirs. You still working, you working hard, and everybody is getting their tax return at the end of the year. They're getting 50, 20,000. They've been doing that for 100 years. You don't think you owed your money?
Let me just say this though. It is not true that reparations isn't happening, because it's happening now.
This morning, California's Reparations Task Force, the first of its kind in the nation, has voted to send recommendations for reparations to state lawmakers, saying it hopes to right the wrongs of slavery, as well as land, housing, and health discrimination.
My great-grandfather was a sharecropper who had 17 children and worked from sunup to sundown and died with absolutely nothing.
There are towns, cities, and states right now in the United States of America that are giving reparations to residents.
We are returning monies taken, returning monies stolen, returning the monies that have been lost based upon the kinds of dispossession and disenfranchisement.
Part of what I think we ought to be able to do is hold both things in our head at the same time, not cancel each other out, right? So again, if it's indeed the case that reparations is happening now, just like Sis talked about the ambulance house, that didn't happen every place at the same time, but it happened in one place and it began to proliferate.
And I heard someone say on the previous panel that elections is not just about voting on election day. And I think that is what a big part of the problem is that we are told, or often we feel like we go vote and then we go home. No, we can't go vote and go home. We have to hold the people who are in office, whether we voted for them or not, accountable. and they have to understand that we put them in place and we can take them out. And that is so pivotal and important.